What's going on, everybody? Hope you are having a wonderful week so far. Before we start the podcast, I'd love it if you could hit subscribe or follow or whatever you're listening or watching on. It just means the world to me. The more people subscribe, it makes the podcast carry on and get bigger and bigger and get better guests and more learning for everybody. Podcast time. Josh Wink doesn't really need any intro. Josh has been making records since the late 80s, early 90s, has had huge smash hits in the underground scene that have converted over Higher State of Consciousness, just let alone is one of the most iconic records in acid house, techno, electronic music ever. He has had a very, successful career in the electronic world, and the way he speaks sounds very educated and very thought out, and everything that he says feels so authentic. I'd never sat down with him. I'd only really bumped into him at festivals or at a show here and there, and never really had the chance or the opportunity to speak to him for a long period of time. And after that conversation that I just had with him, I'm truly amazed with how amazing of a human being he is, and it makes sense why his career has been so successful for such a long time. So, listen, strap in, you're in for a very good one, people. Without further ado, Josh Wink. Mr. Josh Wink, how are you doing, sir?
I am beautifully great-tastic.
Thank you so much.
How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. It's a day of podcast for me. So lots of talking to people, which I'm very grateful for, and trying to write some records in between. And yeah, that's about it. That's about it for me.
What time do you get up?
Today I wake up at 6.
Is that by choice or naturally?
Just naturally. My body just kind of doesn't seem to like waking up, like sleeping for that long. I think that's, I don't know if you get this, for touring. Pretty much.
It just happens. I get up naturally at like 5:15 now. It's
really
nuts. I mean, I have a morning schedule with my son, and I do breakfast time, and I get his lunch and his breakfast together, and then I drive him to school. So, but it's a little bit easier when I kind of get up naturally. But I have a 12-year-old who likes to stay up late, and it's that like, I want to stay up to 12 o'clock kind of thing. And if I don't have a weekend of gigs, I'm home and I'm in bed by my usual time. I'm usually in bed by 9:30 during the school week, because I usually get up at like 1 o'clock to pee, maybe another aging thing, but I do remember doing that before I became gray. It's easier getting up earlier and just catching the worm and doing the things, eating the frog, getting the stuff underway, out of the way, bam.
Yeah, bedtime for me is still around 11, 12. I've never been a great sleeper, sadly. I wish I was, because it would probably benefit me massively. But hey-ho. Whereabouts in the world are you? Philadelphia?
I am in Philadelphia.
Amazing.
The city of brotherly love.
How is it?
It feels like spring. I got up this morning and I heard a noise outside, and it was a car getting out of its parking spot, and the birds were like, yo, get up, come on, it's spring, it's almost here, So it was chilly this morning. It was -3, I think. Ooh. Which isn't chilly for winter, but it's average. But it's going up to, I think, 10 today. But we got blue skies.
That's the main thing.
And sunshine. So it's not so bad when it's masked with the matrix glory of sunshine.
Yeah, I can imagine. I want to get into some music talk. And obviously, I've been a huge fan of, not obviously, but I am a huge fan of your work for God knows how long. your
God knows
career.
how old are you? I'm sorry, I'm a little.
I'm 33.
God, you could be my son.
Yeah. So that's literally what I was about to kind of roll into, is that your career has spanned over 30 years from now.
Damn.
And the thing that amazes me, it doesn't amaze me, and I don't want to say that in a condescending way, but you're still going in a career in an industry that can churn artists in and out very quickly. Can I ask you a favor? Can I ask you to turn your headphones down slightly? Because there's an echo coming somewhere.
I don't know how to do that. Speaker.
That's better. Oh, no, it's not.
I didn't do anything, man. Let me go into my settings. One sec.
It's just your headphones. I can hear myself in your headphones.
Stop talking so loud, Will. Dude.
Sorry, man.
Sound. Let's see. Output volume, input, output, Wikipods, output volume. How's that?
Yo. Yeah.
Is that a little bit better?
Yeah, that's way better, I think.
Okay.
It's all
God,
good.
either we have sensitive earbuds or you got really good hearing. Or stop
My hearing's
yelling.
pretty good, actually, luckily. I don't know how I've managed that. Yeah, well done. Great dad joke there.
Oh. You know what? I must stash you a question.
Go for it.
But I'll shave it to later.
Yeah, okay.
That was my dad joke for you and your beard.
That was a great one as well. I've not heard that one before.
Have you? What do you do when people like say something weird about your beard? You brush it off. All right, that's it. That's about my facial jokes.
Killing it.
I'm chock full of dad jokes.
I know my manager, when he listens to this, he's like the best dad. He loves dad jokes to the best. So he's going to love that moment. I want to go back to what I was saying is over 30 years in the music industry, it is not always the easiest industry to have a long, fruitful career in, whether that's by choice, whether that's because the industry decides time's up. Obviously, it's a very long answer to it. But I'd really like to kind of dig into, like, how have you stayed current, obviously careers ebbs and flow, right? And I'd love to kind of start to kind of hear about how those ebbs and flows and how you've kind of tackled those ebbs and flows throughout your life and career.
Yes. There's your long answer. Yeah, it is. It's a good question. It's not a difficult question, but it's a good, deep question. The industry, whether it's music or any other industry, you have ebbs and flows. You have a cutthroat industry. You have a competitive industry. So it's not just music, but I mean, we're in it, we live it, so we're familiar with the ways of the music industry and how it goes and how it chews us up and spits us out, or chews us up and the gum still has flavor and we're chewing it.
Yeah.
I've been asked this question kind of over the years in different ways, but I think I kind of go back to the saying that I follow my heart and how I feel rather than think about what it is. And if I tend to be more feeling oriented than cerebral and thought oriented, it makes me reflect on how much I love what I do. And I follow my heart, which keeps me staying true to myself and my beliefs and my integrity.
Yeah.
And I just keep doing it. Now, there's an interesting thing in life. I mean, the most consistent thing in life is change. So we all change whether we think it or not.
Yep.
And, there are aha moments, pinnacle points in our lives that things happen to us and we wonder what we do. And looking back at life as an almost 54-year-old man, I feel that I've been blessed to have the ability to follow my heart.
Yep.
And do what I love to do, which is make, create, listen, curate, produce music. A way for me and others to be able to escape and feel this love towards music, regardless of what it is.
Yeah.
So, we getting back to change. I think a lot about David Bowie, and David Bowie is someone that he ebbed and flowed, but he was a master at being able to, I don't want to say mimicry and like Darwin theory, but he took things that he was inspired with and kind of made them his own and own them. And everybody knows that about him. And they say, oh, David Bowie constantly reinvented himself. I remember I was in Brazil playing at there was a space opening of a space club in Brazil. Not in the big cities. It was in a city in the mountains someplace. And me, Carl Cox, and John Rundell and Yusuf were playing. And I played with Yusuf. And he came up to me and said something pretty profound to me at the time, even though it didn't seem like it. He came up to me while I was playing and he says, you know what? I don't know what this song is that you're playing. I like it. And I know it's you. So it hit me. It's like, I have a kind of a signature sound that people know.
Yeah.
Regardless if it's house or techno. And I love blurring the lines in between those two genres. And I like to be able to be contemporary. I don't like to live on solely my music that I've done in the past. I feel uncomfortable when people use the term legendary.
Yeah.
You sent me that. You sent me that note yesterday or the other day on DM on Instagram, and I'm not the best. I check DMs like maybe once a week, if any. And I said I replied to your email, and you're like, legend, man. And I'm like, I just checked my emails. Come on, man, give me a break. But I feel uncomfortable with certain things that people have bestowed upon me rather than me calling myself a legend or this and that. I don't even know what that entails, being a legend, a living legend. But I'm fortunate to have been in the game for a long time. I'm blessed by that. I kind of reinvent my production quality rather than, I still have a Josh Wink sound, but I don't know. It's maybe not so good for me to answer, but to kind of ask you how you feel about, I've been making music since 1989.
Yeah.
And music is harder to get rid of than tattoos.
Yeah.
I always used to say to people, well, make sure you like what you get because you're going to be stuck with it. And
So
you can
true.
take off tattoos now.
Yeah.
For years with pain. But with music, you can't take that back. You can't go on and go into people's homes and take CDs or DATs or tapes or MP3s. You can't. It's out there. So I feel happy with my catalog of music that I've made. Now, mind you, it gets dated. I could tell by my earlier music that I was heavy on the kick. The kick was very punchy, but really up front, not subby as it is nowadays. So I like to kind of grow with the music. I like being inspired. There's so much amazing music out there. And
Yeah.
I like to say I non-directly get inspired by my music and my surroundings. So it's not like I go into the studio and make music and say, I'm going to make something that sounds like this today. I non-directly get influenced by listening to it and having it being a part of my life, and it kind of comes in through me. So I get inspired, and I like to be inspiring. And I try to not kind of be out of the loop by not making relevant music, but I think my music speaks for itself. It's relevant. It's still played by the new kids, the young kids, the old guys, the old whatever. And that's something that I think about every day. I'm like, well, I see the top charts and what's playing, and it's music that I'm not familiar with, so I listen to it, and then I'm like, the trend is going here. Should I go that way, or should I just do my own thing? And I've kind of just like doing my own thing and having people come to me rather than me going to it. I've learned at a young age, too, that I want to do what I want to do because I want to do it.
How did you get to that point where you realized that? Because I think it's so easy in this world, especially in this industry, especially nowadays, to go, oh, this is doing well, I need to copy that, and then I can have some sort of success. Maybe not as much success as that thing that I'm copying, but I may have some sort of success. How did you get to the point where you were like, I just want to do me?
I don't know. I guess it's kind of circling back to keep following my heart and having this. I have this big anchor on me that's holding me down to being. It's being authentic to myself, and I don't feel comfortable doing other things sometimes. I think it's important to feel uncomfortable and put yourself in a situation where you feel these feelings and you push yourself.
Yeah.
But I still push myself. But I just noticed that, the big success for me on the next level besides underground success in the early 90s came with what some people have called like the holy Trinidad of dance music, whatever. I don't know, a couple journalists said that, but after making Don't Laugh, Higher States of Consciousness, and I Am Ready, everybody they wanted a Josh Wink remix, and they want, can you make it sound like Higher States?
Yeah.
And I realized at that point in time, regardless of a remix or my own personal music, I wanted to do me. If I listened to other people and made music, like there's those people that say, I wish Josh made music that just sounded like Higher States of Consciousness. And then you get the people that say, oh, well, Josh doesn't do anything else. He does the same thing. Yeah. So you're in limbo. You're at this catch-22 of what you should do. So I found it not easier, because the tallest trees always catch the most wind. And when you do what you do, it may be the right thing, but it's not the easy thing. And I've stuck to my guns and made the music that I want, and sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you get the recognition and sometimes you don't. But I'm following my heart. I'm really trying to do that, and things are changing, man.
Yeah, massively. I really respect that, because I think I'm lucky enough to speak to lots of people on this podcast, and I feel like there's some people that say that but don't actually mean that, kind of in the same type of words. But when you say that, I genuinely feel that you genuinely mean it. And I think it's like, in everything you just said, there was nothing about anybody else. There was nothing about the audience. There was nothing about selling. There was nothing about like the commerciability of of writing records. There was nothing about the business. It was purely about quintessential making art that you love. And there's something so beautiful to hear that from you, and also from somebody that's been doing it for so long, because
thank you.
You
makes me makes me want to cry or drop the mic, you know. Really,
no, it's really important, and I think so many people need to hear these messages from the people like yourself that have been doing it for so long, because I think I can do it. I can admit to it myself. I can get caught up in the rat race of the industry and success and what is that. And like I not long had Moby on the podcast, and I know it's very easy to sit back from a situation of success in music, right? But there's also that level of like, once you've had some sort of success in the industry, you can then evaluate it in a way of knowing, I guess. And by knowing, you can then pass your thoughts and feelings onto others. And I think by being able to just quintessentially believe in the art you make and love the process of making the art is just a beautiful thing.
I agree. And it sounds very poetic, very ChatGPT coming from you. No, it's nice to hear those words back in that way. It gives me more hope and belief that I want to continue doing what I'm doing and have been doing for so long. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a labor of love. I'm human. I get to deal with the same crap that everybody else does, and sometimes more and sometimes less.
Yeah.
You know, we're all busy, we're all not busy, we all share something in common, but I love being creative. I miss it when,
Where did that come from? Where did that come from in your life? Like, at what point in your childhood was it, I am a creative person?
I've always been artistic. It wasn't always musical. I was always drawing or doing ceramics, or my mom's artistic. She's a ceramicist. My father dabbled in art a little bit, but I guess the push came from my mother when I was 8 years old or something like that, to take piano lessons. And I was very athletic when I was a child, and I wanted to go out and play sports instead of doing the piano. I thought it was a waste of time,
Yeah.
So I learned at a young age about notation and writing. I wasn't very good, and I was very frustrated by the process, but it maybe sparked something in me.
Yeah.
It really didn't come creatively through music in terms of what I'll just put it this way. I have an epiphany in my life. The aha moment of what happened to me, that is why I am here talking to you now. I know the point in my career, in my life, that made me be who I am. And that's a very unique experience to have, that aha epiphany moment. I went to a summer camp outside of Philadelphia in an area called the Poconos, which is this mountainous area around an hour and a half outside of Philadelphia. And there was this junior counselor there who at dinner came up to me, and I'm 12 years old, he's 14 years old. And he said something to me, something silly. I mean, I look back at it as a seasoned man, and I think, what the heck did he say? But he told me that if your hand is bigger than your face, you have cancer. And horrible thing to say, but when you're a teenager, I'm trying to put myself back in my teenage shoes. We do silly, stupid things.
Of course.
And say silly, stupid things. Mm-hmm. So he said, if your hand is bigger than your face, you have cancer. So what do you think I or anybody else would do.
Put
their hand in their face. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I go like this, and he whacks me. He goes whack,
Yeah.
as a joke. And I had an asthma attack, and I was rushed to the hospital because I couldn't breathe. And he felt horrible.
Yeah.
And it turned out that he was the radio station DJ for the camp in the surrounding area on a little AM radio station.
Okay.
And I became friends with him, and I hung out with him while he did his radio show. And I was like, this is awesome. I want to be a radio air personality. I want to be a DJ.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that he also, on the side, outside of camp radio and junior counseling, he had a mobile DJ company called Captain Jack's Mobile DJ. And I became his apprentice at 13 years old, learning the business. And from that moment, the snowball on top of the hill just started rolling and getting bigger and gaining more momentum. I started pushing myself and asking more things and learning more things. I learned how to pack a car. I learned the business. I learned how to set up the equipment. I learned entertainment from a DJ standpoint of that's what a DJ does. He entertains. I bought his equipment when he then went on years later and became like a professional on-air personality at a radio station in New Jersey and in Philadelphia. I bought his equipment from money I was making working on the side, and I taught myself how to DJ.
Amazing.
I started doing school parties, house parties, things of my own, sweet 16s, bar mitzvahs, stuff like that. And then these things just kind of progressed. And then I thought, like, I got into turntablism through the hip-hop culture in Philadelphia, seeing Jazzy Jeff and Cash Money in Philly. And I learned about house music and disco being in Philadelphia. I wasn't into it when I was a kid, but I became so appreciative of what was from Philadelphia. The TSOP, the sound of Philadelphia. And I grew and I learned. And then I got into saying, I have all these ideas as a DJ. I want to put them out and make the music and produce it instead of playing other people's music.
Yeah.
So that's how creatively it came about for me in why I'm here, simply because of that comment. So it's pretty...
It's amazing.
It's pretty cool.
Life's crazy like that, isn't it? How...
Yeah.
Oh, what's that saying? I was listening to a podcast earlier, and I can't remember what it was, but it's that the dad buys the horse, and he says it's like good, bad, or not too sure, and then the son goes and rides the horse. Everyone's like, oh, it's amazing you bought this new horse, and then the son goes and rides the horse, falls off the horse, breaks a leg, and then everyone says, oh, it's terrible you got the horse, and then the dad's like, good, bad, we're not too sure, like we don't know the outcomes. And I think that's the thing, is how all these little things can put us into all these different situations in life, can completely change our path from a phone call away, literally.
Oh, it's an interesting question.
crazy.
I think esoterically and deeply, I think, on if we're living out a destiny, or are we destined to do things, or are we fated to do things, and how much control do we have in our path, and it's an interesting way to think about it. Siddhartha, the book by Hermann Hesse, talked a little bit about the scene of when you're floating in the river and the river current's going to take you, but do you flow with the current, or do you fight against the current? Right? Do you create your own way and do it, or do you fight against it? And it's like life. Do we fight against our destiny, our fate? Do we believe in it? Is it mumbo jumbo? Is it just religious fodder that we're, mind washed to believe? But it's an epiphany for me, though. So
totally.
kind of to answer your question, that's where the creativity came about. And I still remain artistic in a non-musical way as well, too. I did art, painting, drawing, graffiti. I used to graffiti in people's houses and in schools and do legal graffiti, kind of maybe on a different level than what Goldie does, but similar to that.
Oh, wow.
So I have this creative bug that's still in me.
Do you find when you're in the kind of mindset of writing music for yourself, do you find other creative outlets help writing music?
Could you explain a little bit more on that question?
So
like,
I think,
are you saying doing something else to help stimulate that writing?
Yeah, because I think sometimes for me is like actually just doing something. I think it's so easy to just lock yourself in the studio and just write stuff just to write stuff, right? Because we have to, because it's our job to a certain extent. It's part of what we do.
You said the 4-letter word have.
Yeah, but I think
have to.
That does,
oh man, I have to do it.
But I think that does come a point with that sometimes, is that we do there does come a point in my career, in my life, that I for me to carry on doing what I want to do for the rest of my life, there comes a point where I have to do something. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just purely mean that if I want to progress in my life and if I want to make better music, I have to practice the art of making music.
How about this? I make a suggestion towards you.
Hit me.
Substituting the word have with 2 words, one or the other. Choose or want. And could you say what you said again? Substituting the word have with substituting it with choose or want.
Yeah, but I guess it would be...
I want to make music today. I choose to make music today.
Yeah.
You know, like I have to do the fucking dishes. I have to do them. So I do them and I'm really upset about it. But if I choose to do it, there's some psychological twist that makes it easier.
Yeah, it makes using the word have, you're right, it makes it sound like a chore.
So I hear what you're saying, and I'm just kind of playing around with you and everything.
No, I respect it a lot, because I think it's being challenged on certain ways your brain works. It does make it sound like it's... but I think it makes it sound like work, but also I love work. I love the like grind of like, no, I have to do a certain amount of hours in the studio. I love that. For me, it's like, it's weird, but I do love that. But I guess going back to what we were saying is, do you find it easy to, if you're struggling in the studio, is that a thing, struggle in the studio for you? Or because you choose to be in the studio, if you're kind of going with that mindset?
I choose to struggle.
We sound so wanky. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a lot of music released last year, a lot of music.
Yeah.
And a lot of it went, as a lot of music does, goes unnoticed. And I'm not the biggest social media guy on tooting all my what's out, my accolades and this and that, and that's on me. I got it. But last year I did a lot of music, personal, own artistic Josh Wink music, and then remix interpretations of other people's music. And they all came so easily and naturally. It was just like a flow that I was just like, yeah, this is great. It just feels natural. It's flowing, and I want to continue going this. And then I started a remix. The Get Physical guys out of Germany, Philip and Roland, they bought the catalog for Definitive Records from John Acquaviva, and they're releasing all their old Definitive Records classics. I know you probably are aware of Definitive Records, but it was one of the many labels that John Acquaviva and Richie Houghton had, and that they were managing and running in the 90s, and it was a cool house, tech house record label. Different tech house than now tech house. But I did a remix of this Callisto track. It's called Get House. And I used to rock it out. It was an amazing, fun, techno, acid, tech house, breakbeat, rave kind of track. And I had a really hard time with it, the remix. And I opened myself to be a little vulnerable with Philip. Philip's a really cool, down-to-earth person, and we get along really well. And he approached me and said, hey, we have this, we want you. We thought of it, and we knew only you would do the remix. You would be great for it. And I said, I love it. Let's try it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So I started it, and it was just like hitting a brick wall.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking a limiter either. I'm talking about creative. And I just got to a point where I was just adding stuff to it, and it took away. So I sent it to Philip along with an email stating, sometimes this happens where you don't have the creative flow. And I remember when I was so busy in the mid-90s, early 2000s with travel, because that's what we do. We travel as artists. That's how we make a good part of our living. And we travel, and then we don't have time to make music, which is the reason why we're traveling. So I was like, you know what? I have some time. I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to come back to it later. And I wrote a letter to Philip, and he said, it seems like you're trying too hard. Less is more in this case. You have always amazing wink grooves. Try to think of less is more. And I really listened to his words.
Yeah.
And I didn't kind of start over again, but I started with a fresh mind. And it helped push me, and I got the creativity back, and it came in 2 days after he said that. So yes, I do get stuck. Yes, we all get stuck. It's what we do to be able to get unstuck and move on instead of being in our funk.
Yeah.
And not in a good funk way.
Totally. At what point did you come to a realization in your life where the career of making music and DJing was going to be a full-time gig worldwide?
I went to university in Philadelphia, a college called Temple University, and I went for 4 years. And my father is very big on education. He was a dean of admissions at a medical school in Philadelphia. And I was balancing going to school and doing classes and courses in sociology and history and music and computers and music and radio, television, and film. And I was balancing DJing in Philadelphia when I was 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 with going to school. So I'd be out in the clubs late until 3 in the morning, and then I'd have an 8 o'clock class. Yeah. And it just got to a point where I was like, I heard the knocking on the door, and I said to myself, maybe you should stop school. You're 4 years into it. You're almost done. You're almost there. You could always go back. But this is, you go to school, higher education, to be able to make a job so that you can create a living for yourself, and hopefully one that you like. Yeah. So college, university, school teaches you about the world, and then something clicks, and then you follow that path. And for me, that something clicked already. So I'm like, well, why do I need school? School tells you how to do it in the books.
Yeah.
And then says, okay, you graduate, now go and do it and apply it on yourself on your own with a degree. And I said, well, something was presented to me, and let's run with it and try it. And I've learned as much as I could in school at that time, and then I just decided to stop school and do music full time. And I started with DJing and going to college. I was also releasing music and putting out music. And it was just I felt natural. It felt like it's time, you know. And I mean, luckily for me, in terms of fate and destiny again, there weren't too many people doing this in the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, there was a handful of people, but I also felt a little in between worlds because I was releasing on Strictly Rhythm and Nervous and, you know, house labels in New York City that were known for classic house, and they were signing records from me. So it was a weird position to be in where house people, like, you know, Masters at Work or let's say Junior Vasquez or Danny Tenaglia or Dave Morales, they would play my music. That was this, it's not really house, but it's not really techno. And then the techno people, the Sven Bates, the Carl Cox, the Richie Haughtons, they were playing my techno and house. So there was this like really cool blurred line. I mentioned this weird situation that I was in when I was talking life with Chris Liebing, an old friend of mine. And Chris is like, dude, you're complaining about this? I said, well, I'm not complaining. I'm just talking about it. But yes, I've noticed that it was hard position to be in where I kind of surfed the line in between techno and house. And I didn't know where I belong. And he's like, that sounds like a great place to be. And looking at it differently, I was able to kind of switch hats and look at different perspective. And I was like, it is cool, but it was still difficult.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think I can only speak for myself, but I can kind of fit in that world as well, where I have techno people play my music, I have house people play my music, and it's a very interesting world to be in because you're in your own world, and when I'm in my own world, it can feel very alone, but also it goes back to what you're saying at the beginning. You're just doing what you do, and I think by changing what you do to fit in other people's worlds, I've tried that multiple times. I've tried to be in the techno world, I've tried to be in the house world, and it just doesn't ever feel right for me. So I think it's just a case of just doing what we do.
Yeah, I mean,
it's weird.
You're diverse in your musical production as well, and also the stuff that you release on your label. I mean, you speak as a gentleman with different hats. You know, you're a record label guy, you're a producer, you're a remixer, and a DJ.
Yeah.
So we have to feel what's good and what's right for us. I sometimes get demos of people sending me music, and they say, here, I want you to listen to this. Maybe you want it for Ovum. And I said, okay, I'll take a listen to it. So I take a listen to it, and it's not really my thing.
Yeah.
It's good. So I contact them back, and I say, hey, I liked your track. It's not for Ovum, but I can give you some suggestions on where it goes to and where it would fit.
Yeah.
And it's my love to be able to do this for people and just say, you know, I have an integrity of how things at Ovum should sound. So where does it belong? I don't know, but I know it doesn't go on Ovum. But I found myself like Ovum Recordings was always life-based music. It started out with acid jazz, drum and bass, and techno, and like funk and down-tempo beats. So we always kind of mixed it up, but you know, feeling like we belong is something that we all have to deal with as being a human.
Yeah.
And how we tend to look at that, and do we want to fit in or do we not want to fit in? And I asked,
what do you want?
What do I want?
Yeah.
Being consistent with what I've been saying on this interview, I want to follow my heart.
Yeah.
And I want to do what I want to do and love to do, rather than having or choosing or should have kind of thing.
you speak about Ovum, and
I do.
It's quite possibly it's up there with the greats of the record labels, and I mean by, I know what you're talking about. You don't want to hear the word legendary. You don't want to hear any of that, but I feel like record labels speak for themselves with the catalogue of what they do and what they've released and the consistency. You've been extremely consistent at releasing very good music over the years of Ovum.
Thank you.
How do you keep that going? Because like for me, it's like I'm very early in the record label running days. I'm very, very early in comparison to where you're at. And it's hard to find, I'm very picky. It's hard to find music that I truly love, that fits, that I feel like I can represent as a person and as a record label. But being very consistent with it, which is key for any record label in this day and age, or just any ever generally. How have you kind of done that over the years?
Well, follow your heart instead of following the trends and doing what's right and easy, or just doing what's easier. Oh, here's a new sound, let's put it out, let's make some money and become big. It is difficult. It is trying, it is frustrating, but at the end of the day, you can feel good knowing that you keep your integrity, and the music that we released 25, 30 years ago, 15
Still
years ago,
great.
sounds relevant now, rather than sounds, oh, that's so 97, that's so 2001, Matt, who runs the record label, and he's an integral part of the label, he helps with A&R signings, and it just, if it sounds right and we feel it, then we want to be able to put it out and let people hear it. We don't have crazy amounts of streams, we don't have crazy amounts of releases a year, but one thing that we're assured, that when we have a record being released, different people will listen to it. And it seems to be a neat experience for someone seeing an Ovum release and saying, oh, wow, a new Ovum release. I don't know what it would be, but I know it will be quality. It could be house, it could be techno, it could be, drum and bass, whatever. It's Ovum. We'll listen to it. So that's a cool thing. I mean, financially, it's difficult because there's bills to pay, and we're not selling records like we used to. We still sell vinyl and put out certain vinyl. But, when there's 120,000 tracks uploaded to DSPs a day.
It's crazy.
A day.
Yeah.
And they project 43 million. Well, no, they didn't project it. Last year, 2023, around 43 million tracks were added to DSPs. And how do you find that? My son asked me the other day, he says, Dad, if you release music, how do you find it? And I said, that's a good question. I mean, you used to go to a record store, and there used to be, that's the way people used to listen and buy their music. They listen to hear it on the radio, go to the record stores, buy it, and go on. But nowadays, everything's available to anybody whenever they want it, and you can find and identify what it is. I think I have an upfront cutting promo, that I got months in advance from a record label, and I play it, and people are out there Shazamming and finding out that it's available. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, or I thought I was exclusive. I'm just saying that it's technology and it's available and you can get your hands on it. People don't know the pain of going to a record store and wanting to get a record and ordering it from a distributor to a local record store and it not coming in for the next week or the week after or the week after, and you have to wait 4 weeks to get a limited edition marble vinyl of a Depeche Mode record that came from Germany. People are on instant gratification. But anyways, we're celebrating 30 years of Ovum this year. And
that's amazing.
Actually, I have this fun shirt on right here. It's almost exactly 20 years.
That's crazy.
From our Ovum party in Miami.
That's wow.
So I dug this one out.
It's amazing.
But it's definitely a labor of love, and we definitely are putting out not as much music, but good quality music that we love and believe in. And we have an amazing roster of artists and music that we brandish and feel proud about.
Love that. I want to go back to the instant gratification comment that you said. And there's only a handful of artists that are around that are still having success in the industry that have been there pretty much from the beginning, and you're one of them. But I've been DJing 20 years, full-time 10 years, and I've seen a massive change. But I'd love to kind of get your thoughts and feelings of where we're currently at today in the music industry, and just generally your thoughts on it.
Or where we are at, or where I am at. I know you're asking me. I know, but it's a good clarification of where we are or where I am.
I think you're obviously where your thoughts lie on the whole situation. Yeah.
Well, I share a frustration that I think a lot of people share, and it could be a we moment.
Yeah.
I'm blessed and fortunate to have so many years under my belt of doing this. Starting as a DJ when I was 13 years old, and then releasing my first records in 89, 90, and seeing so much of the world go by, and how I fit in it, we fit in it, how it's changed. And it's a little, I don't want to be like bah humbug, old man, wink, things aren't like they used to be. But things aren't what they used to be. But that's life. I mean, you can say that with anything. Things,
of course,
things change. So 10 minutes ago when we started the interview or whatever, things have changed since then. I'm just a little frustrated with the way things are going. Everything, the pandemic has kind of opened and closed a lot of doors. I've just seen, look, music and art and life in general is subjective. It's what the beholder sees in it, and that's what shapes our views and our insight on the world by our subjective outlook on things. And I think, I tend to be, I had a release last year on Jamie Jimster's label on Free Range called that Glass, or the Half Full EP. And the reason it was called Half Full was because I want to look at life like a glass that's half full rather than half empty. I'm a little bit sarcastic and cynical in my nature, and I want to have, I could have that, but being balanced with goodness of seeing life as half full. Like, it's pretty good rather than pretty bad. And there's hope. But things have gotten to a level where I don't think that it's boiled down to so much about computers, electronics, and metadata, where music has kind of become a backseat. I mean, there is an expression that people sometimes use, it's all about the music. Is it?
It's definitely not.
I don't give anybody a hard time for choosing their path or creating their path. I'm doing my thing my way because that's it. I'm not the DJ that goes up on Instagram, social media with his hands up in the air and people taking pictures of me and then me posting it. I'm not that person, but things have become that way. I mean, give me a black room that holds 300 people, a dark room with a fog machine and a siren, and I'm happy. And I'm in the corner. I mean, DJ booths used to be in the corner, not in the front.
Yeah.
That's how we all started DJing, in the corner with a fog machine button and one light.
Yeah.
And we're very different from that now. And so much on booking artists and listening to music are AI algorithms and metadata and, people wanting to only fulfill their need to make money.
Yeah.
I saw the interview the other day you did with Gary Richards, who's an old friend of mine.
Yeah.
And, he was telling you about his starting of how he created and ran the rave scene in LA and how he would balance in between making money and losing money. But it's okay to make money. I'm not saying you have to be underground and not make any money. I think that's ridiculous. We all have a labor of love in our art, and we have to pay our bills.
Yeah.
But so much of the integrity and the deep, meaningful, soulful purpose of music and escapism has lost by what is becoming music now. And
where do you think that changed?
With the advancement of electronics and the internet. I think the internet just totally threw everything up and down. I mean, it's a tool, but the tool was used in a weird way. And I think, there's a scene in the Terminator 2, I think, or maybe it's Terminator 3, where Arnold Schwarzenegger comes back from the past and he tries to kill I think it's Intelenet, or I forget the name of the company, but there's this scientist that created the arm for the machines, and he gets sent back in the past to murder this scientist so he wouldn't make this piece of material and this cybernetic body part that will help create the machines that will kill human existence. And I look at it like life, like someone's going to come back from the future and just kind of do something like that with people that are creating AI, because of this Pandora box that it's becoming. I mean, there's something exciting and neat about it, but I'm really I'm scared. I did an interview with Martin Ware from the Human League, and he has a really cool podcast, and he asked people about AI and what I think about it, and I didn't really delve into how deeply moved and scared and afraid I am of what the frick is going to happen. And I'm starting to see it with how people make music. A lot of people made music with keyboards and drum machines and analog and software with computer programs and DAWs, and we evolve and we move on, we progress, but there's a point in time where sampling came involved, and we would sample bits of pre-existing music.
That is very strange.
Hey,
right.
Ryan, what are you doing here, brother?
Dude, you're an hour. Dude, you're an hour early.
AI.
Josh,
what's up,
dude?
buddy? I haven't seen you in years, dude.
It's been a long time. How are you? I am so sorry to crash.
That's funny, man.
Oh, that is amazing.
It's a joint studio, and I just selected that. I'm new to Riverside here. Well,
Ryan,
sorry,
I think you're an hour early, dude.
How's the family? How's everything?
Oh, jeez. Am I an hour early? Everything's awesome. How are you, dude? How are things?
Great-tastic. I hear of you serendipitously through Kevin Gimbel, so I know of your shenanigans and what you're up to with him. So don't think that I don't think about you and hear about you.
Right on, dude. That's right. Philly boys. You guys, Philly guys for life. That's right. Right on, dude.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to see you. I will come back in an hour.
I'll speak in an hour, dude.
All right. Sorry to crash the thought. Josh,
good.
always
Alright,
good to
man.
see you, dude. I'm
You
sure I'll
too.
see
Love
you
to
on
the
the
family.
road sometime soon.
I hope
brother,
so.
Thank you.
Later. See you.
Big love, man. Big love.
I thought that was a time like you're talking too long. You got to get off. That was
No,
funny.
carry on. That was amazing. That's never happened before, so that was amazing.
Well, there's always a first. So
I agree with you on the whole AI thing, and I think I don't know if I don't know your thoughts and feelings on Elon Musk, but I've just recently finished the Isaac Waterson book that he wrote about him. I don't know if you've read it.
now, it's interesting. I saw the book in the store, and then I also saw the podcast version of it just today.
I don't read books. I listen to books. Really am not I'm not a fan of reading, but I listened to it over the course of like a month, and it was amazing. It was it truly changed my opinion on how he is as a human being, and it's something that he talks about very highly in the book, even though it's not him talking, but about the regulation of AI and how AI can be used could be used in a positive way, but also could be used in a very negative way, and the fact that there's no regulation on anything.
Well, that's kind of similar to how when the internet came into existence regardless of how it started and the military use of it and everything.
Yeah.
But it was just something that nerds did.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden those nerds were working at record labels and they were running websites.
Yeah.
And I think everything was so in this infant stage where no one really knew, but they were like, I'm jumping in the water regardless of the temperature. I'm finding out what's going on and I'm going to create it. And so many things through the internet were setting the standards for how things are now in a very naive way. I think that who came up with this 99 cents a track kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it just kind of stayed put. That's someone made this call and that's how it was. I think there's a lot of AI algorithms that are based on copyright, like old AI algorithms that are choosing what we're listening to. And it's this sense of content oversupply is being causing huge issues. But I see the basis of it solely on internet use in our industry, and that's where it all kind of changed. I'm listening to, I was talking before as well too about sampling and the history of making music from, hardware and analog and then software. We would sample things and that would then become an art form. But we would clear it and then add music to it, and then people who didn't sample and make music, they would create it from nothing, from my analog and my hardware, and I would just create it and record it. And now there's a generation of people that are paying for subscription services. It all kind of really started, I've noticed, with GarageBand. When you bought Apple computer, comes with GarageBand. And my friends' kids were like 8 years old and saying, my son just made this track, I want you to hear it. And I listened to it, I'm like, that's insane. How, what did they do? And they said, oh yeah, I made it in GarageBand. And I realized that these are pre-existing loops that other people made and someone's just throwing it together. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be a good musician, to be a good artist, you have to know your shit. I'm not saying that. It helps. But nowadays, people excel where they excel.
Yeah.
And if some people just are really good at throwing things together and don't know anything about notation or music composition or music theory or history of music, why limit them to be able to be creative and create art when they just don't know their stuff? By just paying for a subscription service to Splice or LoopNet or whatever, and just taking other people's music, dropping it in a DAW, and then saying it's my music.
Well, and I think that I totally agree with you, and I think that is the situation that we're in, especially now, where you have artists that are building huge careers based on somebody else's hit record.
What do you mean, like a cover version or something like that?
No, based on so using sampling, but not actually in the art form of sampling. But they literally take the record that was a #1 hit record in the charts in the 90s, in the early 2000s, taking the vocal and just putting a house beat over it, and then calling it their own. And I think that's the thing that I struggle with the most, because of course if you put a Kylie Minogue record on top of a house beat and play it in a club, everyone's going to know it. Of course that is going to happen. But where's the creativity in that?
Okay, here's the thing. Well, we talked about subjectiveness. And I used to say, I wish I was somehow or other bumped on the head lightly, because I don't want a concussion, but I would lose some of my memory and would be able to think of music as someone that would just appreciate music by not being in the industry. Like I think about music because of my history and my past. Yeah. And I listen to music critically. Not critically, but I think of the music as an art piece. Yeah. And I can't just listen to music. I have to listen to it and think about it and inject my ideas and my beliefs into it. I'm like, I think as an engineer, I think as a producer, or like, oh, the tamborine's a little bit too, high in this, or the kick is too punchy, or I wish it did this. And I sometimes wish I gave that up so I can actually listen to music with an open mind. So getting back to your question, your statement about, where's the creativity in that? There is a creativity in that. I mean, we can argue and discuss about the Andy Warhol sampling and art. Someone sees his Campbell soup cans, and like, where's the art in that? But he had this vision and this process, and he's not even doing his factory of workers are doing it for him. But where's the art in that? And he's saying it's his. So I stated before, I'm not limiting people for doing and being creative the way they are, because everybody's unique with being creative. Now, subjectively, is that creative? That's what we need to ask ourselves. And I have no problem with someone putting up Kylie Minogue record with beats on it and making it big. Look, I'm not going to rain or crap on someone's parade if they want that and they see it clearly. Go get it. Yeah. Go get it. Run and grab it and take it and ride it and make it yours. That's fine. It's not the way I operate. There was something I was going to say in regards to that, but just lost the train of thought. About subjective. I lost it. It'll come back to me shortly.
No, I agree with what you're saying. I think the difference is that the point that I'm trying to get at is, not you specifically, but in that sense, is we're talking about AI, we're talking about algorithms, we're talking about all of these things, is by doing, I'm just using that for example. I don't know anybody that's actually done that, but I'm sure it's been done, right?
Go ahead.
Go on.
Go
for it.
I'll write it down so you can continue your thought.
Okay, but by playing the algorithm at its own game, right? A record that's already been written, that's already been a success, okay? And then releasing that record as an original is yours. I've done this. So I'm purely like talking about myself as well here. But there is a way to cheat the algorithm to have success. But I think the issue is that is it. I'm not talking everyone. I'm just talking very like, I'm generally speaking. I feel like that's what is being talked about in studios is how do we beat the algorithm? How do we overcome the algorithm? And that is by making very fast throwaway music. And I don't mean fast as in like tempo, although
just like
that
make
is
it
happening
quickly.
at this moment.
Yeah.
Quick throwaway music in, out. Disposable, yeah. And I think that's the thing that I'm trying to get at as well is, and it goes back to what you were saying about Ovum, like your career. There's longevity to be had in this industry, and you don't have to have success in your first year of producing music and releasing music. For me, it's like, how do you create a longevity in this scene? How do you create something that has legacy, that has something that people can look back at and go, holy shit, that person's done 30 years in this industry and is still going. I think that for me, like, maybe I sound like an old man saying that, but I think that for me is what's important to me. And I'd like to see that more with other people, is like, okay, this year's not the year, but I'm not changing my sound. I'm not chasing that Beatport #1. I'm not chasing that thing, and I'm not compromising my music. I'm not compromising my art just to get to that, if that makes sense. Yeah,
it totally does. And that's your integrity, and that's your subjectiveness, and that's what makes you click and tick. You just asked me what I think of, what's going on, my take on it, and there's a frustration when someone does that. But what I want to get back to is that I talked earlier in our discussion about starting out as a mobile DJ. Yeah. And I learned something. I learned so much from being a mobile DJ at a young age. But one thing that I kind of understood, and I got to realize later through seeing things like the turntablism development of New York and Philly DJs, is that DJs are entertainers and we entertain.
Yeah.
But then later on in life, I realized that there's a line that I love to skate in between, which is the balance of entertaining and educating. And I don't think that's why I don't have any problem with, the guys that are up there with their hands in the air and smiling for the Instagram moment to get the likes, the views, the interactions, that's cool and everything, because that's a sense of entertaining. I mean, how do I feel about it when every time a certain DJ gets up and stands on the stand and goes on the mic and he's next to the CD player and, jumps back down and gets back into mixing, that's them. That's not me.
It's them, yeah.
I like my dark room and my siren and my fog machine, but I also like the big festivals too. But I'm not that guy with his hands up in the air. That's never kind of worked for me. I've often thought about, what if I do it? Will I get booked more? Will I get more money? But it just doesn't feel comfortable. So I don't do it.
I love that. This is a bit of a strange question, but it's not, and I've never really asked it to anybody. But
you say that to all the guys.
What truly does house and techno mean to you as words when you hear that?
Well, I automatically went into an old house acapella, which is house is a feeling, by Chuck Roberts. And they are familiar objects and things and feelings and waves of sound in my life that I love and I want to continue. And it makes me feel comfortable. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It gives me every feeling I get when I think about electronic music and techno and house. It's kind of like a warm blanket on a cold day. It's just I want to get up and snuggle in it. When I think of what those words represent as a feeling rather than the history of it. You didn't ask the history, which is...
Not at all.
Which is fine. But it conveys a certain unique feeling that's stamped on my mind because it's my feelings of techno and house and what that means to me. And the feelings that I get from when I first heard... I wanted to make music because of... I wanted to make music because of acid house.
Yeah.
And I was already buying and into house records in the mid 80s. But when I heard acid house music, along with, electronic music like Kraftwerk or the synth pop movement out of the UK, from Depeche Mode to OMD to Section 25 to Heaven 17, all that kind of synth pop stuff, it pushed me into wanting to make music and house music and techno music. And it just gives me warm, fuzzy feelings that, it's been a part of my life for so long, and I love it being in my life, and I'm fortunate that it's still there. And as much music as there is out there, the 120,000 songs that are uploaded a day, there is some really amazing music to be found and inspired and influenced by, and have it be a part of your life. And I love that. There's just a lot of stuff to go through. You used to go to the record store and there used to be 20 records up on the wall. Now you think of going into a record store, there's probably 20 records on the shelves now because no one's making vinyl. But in a sense, there'd be 120,000 records on there. How do you choose? How do you find? How do you see it? But this, you just have to hunt a little bit more. Or, I think you and Gary were talking. Destructo were talking about algorithms and trying to find, you need a gatekeeper, he said.
Yeah.
You need someone that has a history and a past to be able to present you with. I love going into record shops. I can be anywhere in the world. It was a really cool feeling that, what this created, making music, created a passport for me to travel the world through DJing and artistry. And I found myself going to record stores in the craziest and coolest places as a part of an international world, global traveler citizen. And I would go into a music store in Japan, or go into a music store in Singapore, or go into a record shop in Belgium. And I would go in there, and then, the guy may recognize me and know who I am. And I'm listening to records at the booth, when I pulled out my records and listened to them to buy. And the guy behind the booth says, "Hey, I know you're Josh Wink, and here, I created this stack of records for you that I think you may like." And then all of a sudden, they became the gatekeeper for me into what he curated, what I may want to hear. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. But my partner and I were talking the other week about we were talking about so much stuff. How do you find something? I don't know. I lost my train of thought again. My cat just appeared in the picture, but
we were talking about finding music and gatekeeping and how record gatekeeping was different to.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned
nowadays
Gary and how he thinks it's important. Oh, we were just talking about the algorithm, and she was saying, you know, a lot of people feel weird about the algorithm that's choosing songs for you, and I said, it's a kind of love-hate relationship with like the Spotify algorithm. I find so much cool music.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember I started on a DSP using Apple Music, and it would kind of match my songs through its algorithm, like, oh, and here's Coldplay, and here's YouTube, and here's Soundgarden, and, you know, more upfront, commercially viable picks.
Yeah.
And on Spotify, I've realized that when I go down the rabbit hole after taking the blue pill, I can really go down deep and find some really cool stuff that I would not have found otherwise. But I also get that from listening to internet radio that has a DJ. Like, when I get up in the mornings and I make my son breakfast, I listen to BBC Radio 6, and there's I hear Mary Ann Hobbs, I guess, is on at the time, and then Craig Charles comes in next. But I learn a lot of things from what they play, and it's a human contact, and I trust them and their music selection, and I love being turned on to new things. But, you know, when you get an algorithm of tracks like Boards of Canada, Plaid, Black Dog, you know, stuff on Warp, you know, things that I really like to listen to, and I didn't know all these other groups that were based on their sound, and that comes up from an algorithm, that's still kind of cool. I don't know. I needed water when I'm in the desert. I don't care how I'm going to get it, but I need it. So if someone's going to give me an oasis, or someone's going to drop a water bottle from the sky, I got my water. But
totally.
It's the journey on how it gets there for me, and I it's a love-hate relationship with that aspect of AI, with the algorithms on how my Spotify links me up to music and it's pretty good, to be honest with you, and I love learning about new things, and there's so much stuff to be out there to make me go, wow. I'm still excited about that.
How much of your day is spent listening to music? Because I'll answer my own question myself. I really, especially electronic music, I barely listen. I go through phases, but I barely listen. I listen to a lot more like country and stuff that's completely out of the world of where I'm in.
You saying how often do I listen to electronic music, or listen to music in general?
Yeah, electronic music.
Well, I'm a little neurotic in the sense that I feel like I always have to have music on. I always have to have sound that helps creating a soundscape for my daily life. Like, there's music that when I'm traveling and on the road, DJing and going through airports, listening to music on an airplane and lines, I have a playlist of music that will help curate my emotions and my feelings to alleviating the stress. Like I said to you earlier, it's music can create this special place that I love to give to people and have other people give to me. I love the love that it brings out of being able to create music and how it feels. So I listen to a lot of ambient, neoclassical stuff in the house, where Brian Eno would say it's kind of like there but not there, you know, and what he did with his brother, with Roger, with Music for Airports. And it's there when you want it to be, and it's not there when it's not there. But you can sense that it's there, and it sets a tone for your being, your feelings. And I mean, every now and then I listen to, I listen to internet radio. So sometimes it may be a DJ mix hour. But in the house, it tends to be less electronic based, except for the ambient side of electronic music.
Yeah.
Just drones, things like that.
Love that.
But in terms of dance music, electronic bass, like drum and bass or trip hop, or I don't listen to it all the time, but I always have to have something on.
Yeah.
And it's an important part in making me who I am and be on a good wave of life by having my music create this soundtrack for my day and my being.
Yeah.
And that's the power and joy of music. And I balance it with finding time to, listen to promos and listen to demos and listen to my own music. I still love it. I want to eat it. When I first got into this, I heard myself saying a lot, I'm like a music junkie, as we all are. This is what I wanted to do. I mean, this is what I wanted to breathe and eat and be, is just this music. And I don't want that to change, and I'm still like that. I still have to have music wherever it is in my life. I'm more electronic based, so that's more a part of it, but I still like to balance in between, reggae and classical and dub and jazz and, the whole gambit of things, because I love music in general. I mean, I was fortunate to grow up with a pretty diverse musical. I mean, my father was into classical, like the Big B's, the Brahms, the Beethoven, the Bach. He was also into big band music. My mom was kind of into new age music, like Kitaro or Vangelis. She was also into like third world music, like the band Third World. And then my brother turned me on to things like rock, like the Grateful Dead and David Bowie and Frank Zappa, Crosby, Stills, Nash, Kraftwerk. So I got a little bit of everything, and that just rubbed off, and I just wanted more and more. It's like, feed me, and it just exploded when I heard. I guess when I heard Kraftwerk from my brother, that things changed as well too in the 70s when he turned me on to something. And then there was also a television station in Philadelphia that would play numbers and Kraftwerk was big in the hip hop community because they always used to cut and scratch with Kraftwerk tracks. So that was a very influential part of who I am, and because of that aspect of my past. But I'm so fortunate to love and learn and be about all different kinds of music, regardless of what it is.
Love that. How does it make you feel when somebody tells you that you are the reason why they do what they do?
It's a really special feeling, and it's something that I get emotional thinking about, because I love being inspired and I love being inspiring. And when someone can tell me and take the time and come and approach me and talk to me, and they would mention something like that, it makes me feel really special, and like I made a difference to society, and I'm helping create something for people to hold and make it their own, and be a soundtrack in their life as well. Hold on one second. Kim, we were talking the other day about music, and remember I interjected, I knew something, like someone came up to me and said, your music really influenced me. Who were we talking about the other day? It was about the Grammys and
I think his name was Luke Combs, and how he was so inspired by Tracy Chapman. Like,
Oh,
before
yeah.
he knew what a favorite song was, it was his favorite song, Fast Car, and that it was the soundtrack to his like 12-year-old life or something.
Thank you. Did you hear any of that?
Heard all of it.
Yeah. I mean, you're in the country, so you probably know who Luke Holmes is. But
I think it was
Yeah.
Luke Combs. I could.
anyways, we were discussing about the Grammys, and then the subjective aspect. I didn't watch it, but she watched it, and she was saying about how there's just, Joni Mitchell was on, and she was 80 years old, and just what she's gone through and what she presented, and creating art and poetry along with music, and being a multi-instrumentalist, and how it affected people. And then she went into saying about Tracy Chapman was on, and how he was influenced by Fast Car. And as soon as he heard that, it changed his life, and it changed his direction from when he was 13 years old. And I listened to what she was saying, and I was like, wow, that's really profound. And I chimed in by saying, not to make it about me, but I want to add something with the story, which is, it's an amazing feeling when someone can come up to you and tell you that you're the reason why they got into music and like electronic music. And in a joking way, I usually kind of say when someone comes up and says that to me, I'm like, I'm sorry I got you into this. But it's really cool. I mean, I've had some pretty crazy stories about people coming to me from Eastern Europe that don't know anything about music. I don't know any English, and leave their small little village in Kazakhstan after hearing Higher States of Consciousness and knowing it was played in the UK, and wanting to go to the UK to learn English because they heard Higher States of Consciousness on the internet. No, it wasn't internet. It was on a cassette tape. Or Kink.
Yeah.
Strahill, Kink, the other day, he sent me a video of a friend of his whose father found an old Russian tape cassette of my album, Left Above the Clouds, that was released on XL out of the UK. And his father played a cassette of my album, and it got him into electronic music. Or the fact that some people have come up to me and said, I just want to let you know your music, it really has a special place for me. It really identifies a point in my life like a tattoo. And when I hear your music, it brings me back to where I met my wife at a rave. And we named our first son Josh because of you. That's pretty deep and profound. And I don't want to knock that feeling off. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. And, I want to be inspired like that as well. And it's so nice to be inspired by others, but also be inspiring to others, mentoring, just being who I am, and I'm just releasing music. But it means a lot to individuals. And
it means so much more to individuals than it does than just releasing music.
Well, I agree, and it kind of sets me up to thinking about what you said about, well, you didn't say it like this, but I mentioned kind of disposable music.
Yeah.
That has its purpose. But
Totally.
then when you get into, other music, I don't want to say that certain music has more meaning, because that's very ostentatious way to look at things, because it's subjective. So people get hit differently by different things, and some people's treasure is some people's trash.
Totally.
So it all affects us differently, and you could hear a Bruno Mars song and be like, what is this crap? Or it's the most incredible thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
So
totally.
It's really deep. And when you ask how I feel about it, I feel moved and blessed and fortunate and happy to have these experiences. and I want them for others to experience, and want to create deep, meaningful music that has a purpose for people, whether it be a soundtrack over their one night with someone at a hotel, or whether it be them sending me a video of their kid in the back of the car going nuts to higher states of consciousness.
So precious.
It's cool. It's a magnitude of what music can do. It does more than just calm the savage beast. It really can affect us in such amazing ways, and it's so beautiful that I happen to be one of these people that it happens to and happens for.
I agree. I agree, and I think that is the most perfect way to end this. If I'm honest,
you could be honest with me.
Yeah, Josh, it's been a really, really enjoyable conversation. Thanks so much for being so honest about this thing that we call music.
Well, it comes from the heart, not the head.
Yeah,
I mean, I think about it, but I know we've been working on trying to get this podcast done. I mean, you approached me a year or two ago about it, and I was looking at the numbers the other day, and not to sound rude or anything, but I didn't hear or see one of your podcasts. And then when you first approached me, I was like, oh, cool, Will does a podcast. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the other day I was listening to the Moby one and Gary Richards' Destructo one. And you have a nice demeanor of getting information out of people. And it's very free-flowing and spontaneous. And it's kind of like things go here, there, and everywhere, and try to come back to where we started our needle and thread going through the fabric of life. But I saw that you were getting up to 100, not 199 and 200, and I'm like, I must not be important because I'm all the way up in the. I'm going to be in 200s. I mean, where was the? Well, I think it's bullshit what you said about me being influential to you, and you grew up like listening.
Yeah,
to my
you're
music,
going to be.
I'm 202 or something like that, dude.
You're 208.
Oh, at least if I was a 202, I'd be like rolling drum machine happy.
In argument against that, if you read your DMs, you would have been at least 100.
Well, I knew that there was something like that as well. That the fact that I wasn't as proactive, but I get yelled at all the time because I don't do as much social media as I should. But as we talked about earlier, I'm kind of not that guy. I understand its importance and I understand its necessity, and I'm not going to be the guy complaining about it. I try to embrace it and use it for what it is, rather than being used by what it is and having it be a slave mentality to me. But I do need to. I get people taking it personally sometimes that I don't reply to things like that, and I'm just like, well, I have to balance my life, and I never even knew. Someone looked at my phone one day and was like, dude, you got to check your DMs. I mean, I had this badge there that said like 500 and something, and I'm like, and I don't get notifications on my phone, so I have the vibrate off. And I have the ring off. So my phone is just like a brick. And when I need it, I use it. It's not using me. At least I try to be that way. But yeah, I do need to be a little bit more proactive when it comes to that. And I do also know that I'm being a little cheeky with you and saying that I'm at the high number. But I'm happy that I made the cut. And I'm in good company if Ryan's coming on next, because he's a very talented man as well. He's someone interesting to. I know we were going to finish up, but he's someone interesting to talk about too, because he does a good job on balancing entertainment and artistry as well. And he's got a different alter ego in terms of his production, because he's got. I mean, I didn't grow up, but in the past. I loved the deep house music that he was doing as Cascade before it became what we think of Cascade now, which is on the commercial side of dance music. But he's just such a great musician, and he does it. But he also has, like, I think he's got a project with Deadmau5 with Joel as well too.
Yeah, KX5. Yeah.
And Joel has Deadmau5, and he also has Test Pilot. And Ryan has Cascade, and he also has a deeper house kind of alter ego as well too.
Yeah.
But it's neat how he's able to do both. And when you're talented and you have drive and determination, you can do what you want to do. And he's a good example of that.
I agree.
So anyways, I know I feel like there's so much more to chat about and stuff, but
dude, I feel like we could talk about forever.
We have like just a new project. I mean, we have Ovum's turning 30 this year. It was a frustrating thing is that the Winter Music Conference is coming up soon in March. And it used to be the staple of like the highlight of my life, because I had, and all the Americans had to go to Europe for the festivals, MEDEM, the Frankfurt Music Festival. We always would have to go overseas to go to the music festivals. And finally one came around, the Winter Music Conference, where it would focus on electronic house, techno music in Miami. And all my friends from Europe would come in Miami. We'd all sit around the pool in our bathing suits and have a drink and a libation and talk music and talk life and see people in different atmospheres. And it still kind of goes on. It kind of stopped, and then it became Miami Music Week, and then it was like the Ultra Music Festival Week, and it's changed, and a lot of people aren't coming anymore. And anyways, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because we wanted to do a 30 years of Ovum party this year at Miami, and we found it hard because either people weren't coming or they had prior commitments doing something. Like Loco Dice was going to do something for us, but he's also playing a party with Nicole Mudaber the same day. And we had DJ Sneak, and he was like, I'm going to do it. And then we had like Joris Vorn, who's doing Ultra, or we were going to have Nick Fanciulli, or we are going to have DeJules. I mean, we have such a large, vast characters on our roster, but I'm frustrated because we're not doing it this year, in other words. But anyways, we are celebrating 30 years of Ovum Recordings this year, and we're going to be releasing some remastered older music. I have a lot of material that I haven't released, and some things that I forgot about that I just came about again, and we're going to be releasing them as singles leading up to an album of a collection of my own personal music. Some deeper house stuff. Hannes Berger, if you're familiar with his music, he's amazing. I do all the engineering and producing myself. We have someone master it, but I've never had anybody mix my stems before. And then I did these 2 tracks, and Matt from Ovum said, why don't you get Hannes to do the mixing on it? And I was like, yeah, why not? So I sent him 2 tracks, all the stems to my music, and he mixed it, and it sounds amazing. It brings so much life and breath. And it was a part of this networking and collaborating that is really cool. So these 2 tracks are going to be on one aspect of the single and releases, and then I have more Josh Winky, unique tech house, minimal Josh Wink acids kind of sounding things. So just to kind of plug up and coming things like that.
Yeah, man. I was going to ask, but I can't wait. I love it when you release new music.
Thank you.
Keep it up, man. Thank you for everything you've brought to with this industry and all the music you've written over the years.
Thank you.
And keep it up, and hopefully see you at some festival or club.
I hope so. And thank you for doing this too. This is a great outlet for people to learn and hear about people's stories and their involvement, and go deeper into appreciation of electronic music. And you've covered the gaff with everybody who you've talked to, from people I didn't know to people I knew. And I look forward to getting into the 208 other podcasts that you have available on different platforms. So thank you, and I wish you continued luck on your beard. I mean, on music and your direction and where you want to go, and your longevity and your inspiration. And it's neat hearing someone who's a little bit younger and is kind of getting more into it with your record label, and I mean, you record on different labels as well too. You know, from True Soul to your own label, and it's this gospel record. What is it called? Hallelujah. Or,
Hallelujah,
I mean, it's you're doing a good thing too. So an
Thank you,
appreciation
man.
to you on top of your accolades to me.
Means a lot, man. Keep safe, and I'll see you soon.
Okay,
Big love, man.
Be good, buddy.
And that is a wrap. Big love to everybody that came on. Big love to Josh. Big love to you all for listening. Keep safe. Don't forget to subscribe, share. See you next time.